I've been taking very serious interest in developments in the United States with regard to gender ideology and the movement that's driving that. And of course, I've been taking a very similar interest in the same movement in the United Kingdom.
In just 13 years, we have had an explosion of the incidence of this concept that you're born into the wrong body. And these transgender clinics have popped up to offer services throughout the country.
The state-level fights on gender identity policies are really just getting started. In regards to children, the first laws pushing back against the loophole through which total affirmation of a child's gender identity claims were put forward, and the first was in South Dakota, the Vulnerable Child Protection Act.
I am transgender, I have completely medically transitioned, and I do not have a dog in this fight. I'm trying to save your kids.
The idea of the Vulnerable Child Protection Act was to prevent people going down that path until they were at least 18 and could be more mature to make these decisions.
And the males who had grown up as male and decided as adults to become female, their voice is deep because the larynx has been subjected to testosterone. Their torsos are big, their shoulders are big, their feet are big, their hands are broad, things that don't look very much like a woman. And so they said, if we stopped it before we ever got there, that would be ideal. And that's what drives the puberty blocking, is the wishes of the adults who have not been happy with what their bodies did on their own, and they don't want that to happen.
See finally some discussion about the limits of a child's ability to give that consent. And when you're being told by a medical professional that this is something that's good for your child, and to not do this is going to be harmful, it's very, very difficult for a parent, to challenge that, especially if they don't have the medical background. Parents are very protective of their children, and they want the best for them, and many times that they will know that, or at least feel that this is not the right approach, but they really don't have an ability to challenge that. The reality is we don't have any long-term studies in children, and there's a very good reason to be concerned about the outcome. Specifically, some of the largest studies that have been done with the longest follow-up have shown that suicide rates remain markedly elevated after you undergo these affirmation interventions.
There's one study, and that's the study by Deshny. They followed up every person who had gone through trans surgeries from earliest times through, I think it was 2007. There were some 324 people of both sexes who had been through the process, and they were included in the study. There was a 19 times higher hazard of suicide, of completed suicide. This is in the context of Sweden, which was by far the most welcoming, accepting society of transsexualism, even through the 70s.
If you look at the package insert, this is what is required by all drug manufacturers to put all the information about risks and benefits of their particular product. In the package insert for the puberty blockers, they mention as a side effect changes in mood and depression and suicide risk. The concern about depression and suicide is real. That's not to be dismissed.
Puberty is a critical part of changing a non-fertile person into a fertile adult. And there's so many things in the human body and the brain that depend on that transition. Our bodies need that. They are expecting it to happen. The cells of the body are already designated as male or female throughout the body, and they respond to the hormones that they're expecting to see to mature organs, taking the prepubertal gonads and making them produce hormones and fertility-inducing cells, that the sperm and the egg, so that the human species can reproduce.
And obviously, if you engage in sex reassignment surgery, again, what they prefer we call gender affirmation surgery, you're removing the testicles, you're removing the ovaries, so infertility is guaranteed. Other complications with cross-sex hormones, the risks of blood clots, strokes, heart attacks, various cancers. The list goes on from there.
You look at estrogen in a male, we're getting those levels up, bizarre levels of of estradiol in the bloodstream that cause clotting disorders and which make stroke, a high liability. And so we're doing things to the body that then, if you stop it, your body's already been at risk. Your body has already changed. The damage is already done and it can't be repaired. The estrogen levels in a man are supposed to be, less than 15. If above that, you've got liver pathology because the liver is not metabolizing things. And here we are recommending elevated estrogen levels as part of a treatment protocol.
It was very encouraging to see the Tavistock judicial review come down on the side of demanding good evidence, both good evidence of the efficacy of the procedures, which it did not find, and good evidence that young people really understood the full ramifications of a decision, and the court found that children under the age of 16 were extremely unlikely to be able to understand the consequences of making such decisions, and that there was poor evidence supporting this treatment. The Tavistock Clinic, because they've got the centralized National Health Service, they are publicly accountable in a way that the pediatric gender clinics that have sprung up in the U.S. are not.
People that actually worked at the Tavistock who left because of the way that this condition was being approached, and they had legitimate concerns about that. Recognizing that when we're talking about, especially when we're talking about treating children, these drugs are being given, the hormones, the puberty blockers are being given without explicit approval by the Food and Drug Administration. They've not been approved for these indications.